Millionaire CEO forced his pregnant girlfriend to abort the baby or leave. She returned 5 years later with his twin girls. The champagne glass hit the marble floor and exploded into 1,000 pieces. The entire ballroom went silent. Garrett Hastings stood frozen, staring at two little girls across the room. They had his eyes, his nose, his exact face staring back at him in miniature. And standing behind them was the woman he thought had disappeared, was gone forever. Hi, my lovely family. Welcome back to Mr. William Chronicles, where every story carries a life lesson worth remembering. If this is your first time here, we're so glad you're here. Show some love and hit that subscribe button and become part of this amazing community of story lovers. Let me speak a blessing over you. May you never be too proud to admit when you're wrong, too broken to begin again, or too late to make things right. May you have the courage to face the consequences of your choices and the strength to rebuild what you've destroyed. And when redemption finally finds you, may you embrace it with humble hands, not because you've earned it, but because you've learned that love is more powerful than ego, and second chances are gifts we must never take for granted. 3 hours earlier, Garrett signed his name across the bottom of the contract and smiled. $30 million. Just like that. The merger was done. Congratulations, Mr. Hastings, his lawyer said, shaking his hand. This makes you one of the youngest commercial real estate moguls in the state. Garrett leaned back in his leather chair. At 34, he had everything. A penthouse downtown. A company worth hundreds of millions. Respect. Power. Control. Send the press release, Garrett said. I want this announced before the gala, tonight. His assistant knocked and entered. Sir, your car is ready. The event starts in 2 hours. Garrett stood and buttoned his suit jacket. Tonight was supposed to be his victory lap. Another charity gala, where rich people pretended to care while networking over expensive wine. He would shake hands, accept congratulations, and remind everyone why his name mattered. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Buildings stretched out below him like pieces on a chessboard, and he controlled more of them than anyone his age had a right to. Sir, his assistant called. Anything else before you leave? No, I'm good. But he wasn't good. Not really. Because 6 years ago, Garrett had made a choice. A choice he buried so deep he almost convinced himself it never happened. Her name was Nina Reeves. She had been his executive assistant. Smart, driven, beautiful in a way that made him break his own rules about office relationships. They started sleeping together. Kept it quiet. Professional during the day. Something else entirely at night. Then she got pregnant. Garrett remembered the exact moment she told him. They were in his office after hours. She was shaking, crying, hopeful in a way that made him feel sick. We can figure this out, she had said. I know it's not ideal, but we can make it work. Garrett had looked at her like she had just suggested burning his company to the ground. No, he said. We can't. Garrett, please. Nina, listen to me. I'm 3 months away from the biggest acquisition of my career. Do you know what investors think when they see a man with a baby? They think he's distracted, weak, soft. I didn't build this company to throw it away because we weren't careful. Her face had crumbled. So what are you saying? I'm saying I'll pay for the clinic. I'll arrange everything. You take a week off. When you come back, we move on. Move on. Yes. Move on. Like adults. She had stared at him like he was a stranger. And maybe he was. And if I say no? Garrett's voice had gone cold. Then you're choosing unemployment and homelessness over a simple medical procedure. Because without a job, without a reference, without a place to live, you'll have nothing. Is that what you want for yourself? For a child? It wasn't a threat. It was math. And Nina knew it. 2 days later, she went to the clinic. Garrett drove her there himself. Waited in the parking lot. Drove her home in silence. We never talk about this again, he had said when he dropped her off. She nodded, got out of the car, closed the door. 2 weeks later, she was gone. No resignation letter. No forwarding address. Just gone. Garrett had been annoyed at first. Then, angry, he called her phone, disconnected. He sent someone to her apartment, cleared out. He even hired a private investigator for a week before canceling the contract. The bill felt excessive. And besides, he had a business to run. After 2 weeks of searching, he gave up. Nina became a story he told at networking events. Had an assistant once who just vanished. Weirdest thing. People would laugh, shake their heads, move on. And so did Garrett. Until tonight. The Riverside Hotel ballroom glittered like something out of a magazine. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Men in tuxedos. Women in gowns that cost more than most people made in a month. Garrett moved through the crowd easily. Handshakes. Small talk. Fake laughter at jokes that weren't funny. Garrett. A voice called. One of his investors waved him over. Come meet the new board member from Langston Industries. Garrett walked over, shook hands, smiled. This was his world, and he was good at it. Then he saw her, Nina, standing near the entrance with 3 people, an older woman, and 2 little girls. Garrett's breath caught. The girls were identical, maybe 5 years old, dark curls, wide eyes, wearing mismatched dresses that looked like they came from a thrift store. And they looked exactly like him. His heart started pounding. His hands went numb. The room tilted. One of the girls noticed him staring. She tilted her head, curious. Then she started walking toward him. Harper, wait, Nina called. But the girl didn't stop. She walked right up to Garrett and looked up at him with those eyes, his eyes, and said, Mister, why are you staring at us? Garrett opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The second girl joined her sister. Quieter, more cautious. She held onto her sister's hand and studied him carefully. Nina appeared beside them, breathless. She put her hands on the girl's shoulders and locked eyes with Garrett. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Garrett's champagne glass slipped from his hand. It fell, hit the marble, exploded. The entire ballroom turned to look. And Garrett Hastings, the man who controlled everything, stood in the middle of the floor with his past staring him in the face. They're mine, he whispered. Nina's jaw tightened. No, they're mine. You made sure of that 6 years ago. People pressed closer. Phones came out. Cameras started recording. One of the girls tugged on Nina's dress. Mama, who is this man? Nina didn't look away from Garrett. Her voice was ice. Someone who thought he could erase mistakes. But life doesn't work that way. Before we get to the moment that shatters Garrett's world completely, do me a favor. Subscribe to Mr. William Chronicles and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. You're the fuel that keeps these stories coming, and I want to connect with this wonderful family from all over the world. The crowd closed in like wolves smelling blood. Phones were already recording. Whispers spread through the ballroom like wildfire. Garrett stood there, shattered glass at his feet, staring at the 2 little girls who had his entire face. Mama, why is everyone looking at us? The quieter twin asked, pressing closer to Nina. Nina bent down to their level. It's okay, Piper. Everything's fine. But everything wasn't fine. Garrett finally found his voice. Nina, I need to talk to you. No, please. Just give me 5 minutes. You don't get to ask me for anything. Nina's voice was calm, deadly calm. The kind of calm that comes before an explosion. Harper, the bolder twin, looked up at Garrett again. Are you sad? You look like you're going to cry. Garrett's throat tightened. He was going to cry. In front of 300 people. In front of investors and business partners, and everyone who thought he was untouchable. Harper, come here, Nina said firmly. But Harper didn't move. She kept staring at Garrett with those big, curious eyes. Mama says crying is okay. She says it means you have feelings you need to let out. A woman nearby whispered to her husband, Oh my God. Those girls look exactly like him. Someone else murmured, didn't he used to have an assistant named Nina? She disappeared years ago. The pieces were falling into place for everyone watching. And Garrett could see it happening in real time. Nina stood up and pulled both girls closer. She looked at Garrett one last time. Stay away from us. She turned to leave. And Garrett did something he never thought he would do. He begged. Nina, wait. Please. I didn't know. She stopped, turned around slowly. Her expression was pure fire. You didn't know. Her voice rose. You didn't know because you didn't want to know. People were recording everything now. This wasn't just gossip anymore. This was a scandal. I went to that clinic like you told me to, Nina continued, her voice shaking. I did exactly what you said, because you made me believe I had no choice. You threatened my job, my apartment, everything I had worked for since I aged out of foster care. Garrett's stomach dropped. He had forgotten that detail. Nina had no family, no safety net. He had used that against her. But my body rejected it, Nina said. The procedure failed. And 2 weeks later, I found out I wasn't just pregnant anymore. I was carrying twins. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Harper looked up at her mother, confused. Mama, what's happening? Nina's voice softened when she looked at her daughters. Nothing, baby. Mama's just talking to an old friend. He doesn't look like a friend, Piper said quietly. Nina's eyes went back to Garrett. She's right. You were never a friend. You were a mistake I learned from. Garrett felt his knees weaken. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm so sorry. Nina's laugh was bitter. You're sorry now? Where was sorry 6 years ago when I was bleeding in a hospital bathroom, terrified and alone, realizing the procedure didn't work? Where was sorry when I gave birth to them by myself because I knew if I told you, you'd try again to make them disappear? Piper started crying. The little girl didn't understand the words, but she felt the anger in her mother's voice. Nina immediately scooped her up. Sure, baby. It's okay. Mama's not mad at you. Why is Mommy yelling? Piper whimpered. Harper grabbed Nina's hand. Can we go home now? Nina nodded. Yes, we're leaving. But before she could take a step, one of Garrett's business partners, a man named Richard who had too much wine, spoke up loudly. Garrett, is this true? Did you actually force this woman to? Shut up, Richard, Garrett snapped. But the damage was done. The question hung in the air, and everyone was waiting for an answer. Garrett looked at Nina, then at Harper, then at Piper. Yes, he said quietly. It's true. Everything she said is true. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Richard stepped back like Garrett had just confessed to murder. Other people started whispering louder. A reporter from the local business magazine was already typing furiously on her phone. Nina didn't look surprised. She looked exhausted. Come on, girls, she said, guiding them toward the exit. But Harper stopped. She turned around and looked at Garrett one more time. Mister, if you made Mama sad, you should say sorry. Really sorry. Not the kind of sorry that's just words. Then she took her mother's hand and walked away. Garrett stood there frozen, as the three most important people in his life disappeared through the ballroom doors. Someone touched his shoulder. His lawyer. Garrett, we need to leave. Now. Before this gets worse. But it was already worse. Because, as Garrett looked around the ballroom, he saw exactly what he had spent his entire life building. Respect. Gone. Trust. Shattered. Power. Slipping through his fingers like water. And for what? For a company that would forget his name the moment the stock price dropped. For wealth that meant nothing when he had no one to share it with. For control over a life that was completely empty. His phone started buzzing. Text after text. Email after email. One message stood out. It was from his biggest investor. We need to talk. Tomorrow morning. This is unacceptable. Another message. From the board of directors. Emergency meeting scheduled. Your presence is mandatory. Another one. From a business partner. I'm pulling out of the Riverside deal. I can't be associated with this. Garrett's empire was crumbling. And it had taken less than 10 minutes. He walked out of the ballroom in a daze. Outside, the night air hit him like a slap. He leaned against the building and tried to breathe. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a news alert. Real estate mogul Garrett Hastings caught in abortion scandal at charity gala. There was already a video. Someone had uploaded the whole confrontation. It had 5,000 views, then 10,000, then 50,000. Garrett watched the video, watched himself standing there like a coward while Nina told the truth. Watched his daughters, looking at him like he was a stranger. Because he was a stranger. He had spent 6 years pretending they didn't exist. And now they were real, standing in front of him, breathing, talking, living. And he had no idea what to do. His driver pulled up. "Mr. Hastings, are you ready to go?" Garrett got in the car without answering. As they drove away from the hotel, Garrett looked out the window at the city he thought he owned. But he didn't own anything. Not really. Because the only things worth owning, his daughters, their trust, their love, he had thrown away before he even knew they existed. And now he had no idea if he would ever get them back. Garrett didn't sleep that night. He sat in his penthouse, watching the video replay over and over on his laptop. 3 million views now. The comments section was brutal. "This man is disgusting. Those poor babies. Thank God their mother escaped. Money can't buy morals. He deserves to lose everything." Garrett closed the laptop. His hands were shaking. His phone rang. It was his lawyer. "Don't answer any calls from reporters," the lawyer said immediately. "Don't post anything on social media. Don't leave your apartment. We need to control this narrative before." "There's no narrative to control," Garrett interrupted. Everything she said was true. Silence on the other end. Garrett, legally speaking, admitting fault is the worst thing you can. "I don't care about legal strategy. I care about the fact that I have 2 daughters I didn't know existed because I was too much of a coward to face what I did." His lawyer sighed. "Fine. But you need to prepare yourself. The board is going to push you out. Your investors are already pulling funding. By the end of the week, you won't have a company anymore." "Good." "What?" "I said good. I built that company on the backs of people I stepped on to get ahead. Maybe it's time it all comes down." Garrett ended the call. He stood up and walked to the window. The city looked different now. Colder. Emptier. His mind drifted back. Back to 6 years ago. Back to the moment everything went wrong. 6 years earlier. Nina had been the best assistant he ever had. She anticipated his needs before he even asked. Stayed late without complaining. Laughed at his jokes. Made him feel like maybe he wasn't just a machine built for profit. They started sleeping together 4 months into her employment. It was supposed to be casual. No strings. No complications. But then she got pregnant. Garrett remembered the exact look on her face when she told him. Hope mixed with terror. Like she wanted him to be happy, but knew he wouldn't be. "I know this isn't ideal," she had said, her voice trembling. "But we can figure it out. I'll keep working. We can hire help. It doesn't have to ruin your plans." Garrett had felt nothing but panic. Pure, cold panic. "Nina, I can't have a kid right now. Do you understand what I'm trying to build here? Investors don't trust men with families. They think it makes you weak, distracted. That's not true. It is true. I've seen it happen. My mentor had a kid and lost 3 major deals because people thought he wasn't hungry anymore." Nina's face had fallen. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying we handle this. Quickly. Quietly. I'll pay for everything. You take a week off. When you come back, we move forward like nothing happened." "Like nothing happened?" Her voice cracked. "Garrett, this isn't nothing. It's a mistake. And we fix mistakes." She had stared at him like she didn't recognize him anymore. "And if I don't want to fix it?" Garrett's voice had turned ice cold. "Then you're choosing to be unemployed and homeless. Because without a job, without a reference for me, you won't find work anywhere in this city. And without work, you can't afford rent. So what's it going to be, Nina? A simple procedure or complete financial ruin?" He had seen the exact moment she broke. The moment hope died in her eyes and was replaced by resignation. "Fine," she whispered. "I'll do it." 2 days later, Garrett drove her to the clinic. He waited in the parking lot, scrolling through emails, planning his next acquisition. When she came out, her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. He drove her home in silence. "We never talk about this again," he said when they arrived at her apartment building. She nodded, got out, closed the door. Garrett drove away and went back to work. 2 weeks later, she was gone. Apartment cleared out. Phone disconnected. No forwarding address. Garrett had been annoyed. He called her cell 50 times. Sent emails. Even drove by her place to see if she was hiding. Nothing. So he hired a private investigator. The guy worked for 5 days, found nothing, and sent Garrett a bill for $3,000. Garrett looked at the invoice and thought, "This is ridiculous. She's just an assistant. I'll find someone else." He canceled the investigation, moved on, hired a replacement within the week. Nina became a funny story he told at networking events. Craziest thing, had an assistant once who just vanished. No notice, no explanation, just gone. People would laugh, shake their heads, say, "You can't trust anyone these days." And Garrett would agree. He never thought about her again. Until tonight. Garrett's phone buzzed, pulling him back to the present. Another news alert. Garrett Hastings' company loses major contract following scandal. Then another. Investors pull $40 million in funding from Hastings Real Estate. Then another. Board of Directors calls emergency meeting to remove CEO. It was happening. Everything he had built was collapsing. And the strangest part? He didn't care. All he could think about were those 2 little girls. Harper and Piper. His daughters. They had his eyes, his stubborn chin, his exact way of tilting their heads when they were confused. And they didn't know him. They looked at him like he was a stranger. Because he was. Garrett grabbed his jacket and left the penthouse. He didn't have a plan. He just knew he couldn't sit still anymore. He drove to Nina's neighborhood. He didn't know her exact address, but the investigator's old report had listed the area before the trail went cold. It took him 2 hours of driving around before he saw them. Nina was walking with the girls on the sidewalk. They were holding her hands, laughing about something. Harper skipped. Piper walked carefully, avoiding cracks in the pavement. Garrett pulled over and got out of the car. Nina saw him immediately. Her face went hard. "What are you doing here? I needed to see you. To talk." "No." She pulled the girls closer. "You don't get to show up at my neighborhood. You don't get to invade our life." "Nina, please. Just 5 minutes." Harper looked up at him. "Mama, it's the sad man from the party." Piper hid behind Nina's leg. "Girls, go sit on that bench over there," Nina said, pointing to a spot 20 feet away. "Stay where I can see you." They obeyed, though Harper kept glancing back. Nina turned to Garrett, her eyes blazing. "You have 60 seconds. Talk." "I'm sorry." "That's it? That's what you drove here to say?" "No." Garrett's voice cracked. "I didn't know the procedure failed. I didn't know you were still pregnant. If I had known." "You would have what? Tried again? Pressured me harder? Don't pretend you would have suddenly become a good man, Garrett." "You're right. I wouldn't have. I was a monster. I cared more about money and power than about you or the life we created." Nina's jaw tightened. "So why are you here?" "Because I want to fix it." "You can't." "I know. But I can try. Please. Let me try." Nina laughed bitterly. "Try what? Try to be a father? You don't just walk into that role, Garrett. You earn it. Then tell me how. Tell me what I need to do." She studied him for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice sharp as glass. "You want to earn it? Then lose everything. Live the way I lived when I was pregnant and terrified. Work jobs that break your body. Experience powerlessness. Feel what it's like to have nothing." "Okay." Nina blinked. "What?" "Okay. I'll do it. I'll lose everything. I'll live like you did. Just tell me, will it be enough? If I suffer, if I prove I understand what I put you through, will you let me know them?" Nina's expression softened for just a second, then hardened again. "Maybe. But not today. Today you leave. You go figure out who you are without your empire. And if you're still standing in 2 months, come find me. Then we'll talk." Garrett nodded. 2 months. He turned to leave. But before he got in his car, he looked back at the bench. Harper waved at him. Just a small wave. Nothing big. But it cracked something open inside Garrett's chest. He waved back. Then he got in his car and drove away. As he left, he made a decision. He would lose everything. Not because Nina told him to, but because his daughters deserved a father who understood the cost of his choices. And if that meant burning his life to the ground, then so be it. 2 months felt like 2 years. Garrett lost everything, just like Nina said he would. The board voted him out. Unanimous decision. His investors pulled their money so fast it made his head spin. Within 3 weeks, his company was sold off in pieces to competitors who had been waiting for him to fall. His penthouse? Gone. Sold to cover settlements and legal fees. His car? Gone. His reputation? Destroyed. Garrett moved into a tiny apartment on the east side of the city. 1 room. A bathroom so small he could barely turn around. Walls so thin he heard his neighbors arguing every night. He got a job in construction. Not because it was noble. Because it was all he could get. 12-hour shifts. Lifting concrete blocks. Pouring foundations. His hands blistered. His back screamed. He came home every night covered in dust and sweat, barely able to stand. But he didn't quit. Every night, after his shower, he sat at the small desk in the corner of his room and wrote letters. Letters to Harper and Piper. He didn't know if they would ever read them. Nina hadn't given him permission to send anything. But he wrote them anyway. Dear Harper and Piper, today I learned that concrete weighs more than I thought. My boss yelled at me for moving too slow. I wanted to yell back, but I didn't. Because I'm trying to be different than I was. I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I'm writing it because you deserve to know that someone is thinking about you, even if that someone doesn't deserve to be in your life yet. He wrote 60 letters in 2 months, 60 apologies, 60 confessions, 60 promises he wasn't sure he could keep. On day 61, he walked to Nina's apartment. It was early morning. The sun was just coming up. Garrett stood outside her building, his hands shaking. He had practiced what he would say, rehearsed it 100 times. But when Nina opened the door, everything he planned disappeared. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept much either. You came, she said quietly. I told you I would. Nina studied him. His worn clothes, his calloused hands, the exhaustion in his eyes. You look different. I am different. She didn't invite him in. Not yet. She just stood there, deciding. Why should I believe you? She finally asked. Because I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to let me prove it. Nina was quiet for a long time. Then she stepped aside. 1 hour. Supervised. If they're uncomfortable, you leave immediately. Okay. Garrett walked inside. The apartment was small but clean. Toys in the corner. Drawings taped to the walls. A life built from nothing that was somehow worth more than everything he used to have. Wait here, Nina said. She disappeared down the hall. Garrett heard her talking softly to the girls. Then footsteps. Harper appeared first. She stopped when she saw him, her head tilting to the side. You're the man from the party. Yes. Mama said you're our father. Garrett's throat tightened. Yes, I am. Piper peeked around the corner, still holding her stuffed rabbit. She didn't come closer. Harper walked right up to him and stared. You don't look like a father. You look like someone who works outside. I do work outside. In construction. What's construction? Building things. Houses. Buildings. Fixing things that are broken. Harper considered this. Can you fix everything that's broken? The question hit him like a punch. No, Garrett said honestly. Some things stay broken, but you can try to make them better. Piper finally stepped into the room. She didn't say anything, just watched him with those careful eyes. Nina stood in the doorway, arms crossed, ready to intervene if needed. Can I sit down? Garrett asked. Harper nodded. Mama says you have to ask permission for things. That's good manners. Garrett sat on the floor. Harper sat across from him. Piper stayed standing, still clutching her rabbit. Do you have questions for me? Garrett asked. Harper didn't hesitate. Are you really our daddy? Biologically, yes. But being a father is more than that. It's about showing up, being there. And I haven't done that yet. Why not? Garrett glanced at Nina. She gave him a look that said, "Tell them the truth. Because I made a very bad choice 6 years ago. I was scared and selfish, and I hurt your mother." "Did you say sorry?" "Yes. But sorry isn't enough. I have to show I'm sorry by being better." Harper thought about this. Then she asked, "Do you want to be our daddy?" "More than anything. Even more than being rich." Garrett's voice cracked. "Yes, even more than that." Piper finally spoke. Her voice was so quiet Garrett almost missed it. "Why are you sad?" Garrett looked at her. "Because I missed 5 years of your life, and I can't get those back." Piper walked closer. She reached out and touched his hand gently. "Mama says sad people need kindness." Garrett's eyes filled with tears. He tried to blink them away, but they came anyway. Harper noticed. "It's okay to cry. Mama says crying means you have big feelings." Garrett nodded, unable to speak. Nina's expression softened just a fraction. She didn't interrupt. Harper stood up and walked to the corner where the toys were. She came back with a coloring book and crayons. "Do you know how to color?" Garrett wiped his eyes. "I used to. A long time ago. You can color with us. But you have to stay in the lines. Piper gets mad if you don't." Piper nodded seriously. So Garrett sat on the floor of Nina's tiny apartment and colored with his daughters. Harper talked the entire time. About school. About her teacher. About her friend Emma, who had a dog. About how she wanted a dog too, but Mama said maybe when they moved to a bigger place. Piper was quieter, but she smiled when Garrett colored a flower purple instead of pink. "That's wrong," she said. "I like purple. Flowers are supposed to be pink. Some flowers are purple." Piper thought about this. Then she took a purple crayon and colored her flower purple too. Harper laughed. "Now we all have purple flowers." The hour went by too fast. When Nina said it was time, Harper looked disappointed. "You're leaving already? Your mother said 1 hour. I have to respect that. Will you come back?" Garrett looked at Nina. She hesitated, then nodded once. "If your mother says yes, then yes. I'll come back." "Can you come back next week?" Harper asked. "If it's okay with your mother." Nina spoke for the first time since the visit started. "Next Saturday. Same time. 1 hour." "Thank you." Garrett stood up. His knees hurt from sitting on the floor, but he didn't care. As he walked to the door, Piper's small voice stopped him. "Bye, Daddy." Garrett froze. He turned around slowly. Piper was looking at him with those big eyes, hugging her rabbit. "Bye, Piper," he managed to say. Harper waved. "Bye. Don't forget to come back." "I won't." Nina walked him to the door. Outside in the hallway, she spoke quietly. "You did good today. Thank you for letting me see them. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for them. They deserve to know their father, even if he's late." "I know." Nina's expression was still guarded. But there was something else there now. Something that wasn't hate. "Don't mess this up, Garrett." "I won't." He walked down the stairs and out into the morning light. His entire body hurt. His hands were raw. His back ached. But for the first time in 2 months, he felt something other than regret. He felt hope. Small, fragile, uncertain, but hope nonetheless. Because Piper had called him Daddy, and Harper wanted him to come back. And Nina had said next Saturday. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning. If you're still watching and your heart just broke a little, tap that like button because these twins are about to teach everyone what forgiveness really means. Show this story some love with a like and comment Team Harper and Piper if you believe people can change. And subscribe to Mr. William Chronicles. Trust me, the transformation gets even more powerful. Garrett never missed a Saturday. Not once. Even when his shift ran late and he had to sprint across town. Even when he caught the flu and could barely stand. Even when his boss threatened to fire him for leaving early. He showed up. Every single week. By the 4th visit, Harper stopped asking if he was coming back. She just assumed he would be there. By the 6th visit, Piper let him hold her stuffed rabbit. She handed it to him carefully, like she was trusting him with something precious. "His name is Button," she said, "because he has button eyes." Garrett examined the rabbit Seriously. Button is a very good name. You have to be gentle with him. He's old. I will. Piper watched him hold the rabbit for a moment. Then she climbed into his lap. Garrett's breath caught. Nina, sitting across the room, tensed but didn't interfere. Piper rested her head against his chest and yawned. You smell like outside. I came straight from work. What do you build? Right now? An apartment building downtown. Is it big? Very big. 12 floors. Can we see it when it's done? Garrett looked at Nina. She gave a small nod. Yes. When it's finished, I'll take you to see it. Piper smiled and closed her eyes. Harper was on the floor working on a school project. She had papers and markers spread everywhere. What are you working on? Garrett asked quietly, trying not to wake Piper. Family tree. For school. It's due Monday. Garrett's stomach tightened. Family tree. Yeah. We have to draw our family and write about them. Harper held up her paper. Look, this is Mama. And this is me. And this is Piper. Garrett saw the drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands. No one else. Where do I go? He asked carefully. Harper looked at him. Then at her mother. Then back at her paper. I don't know yet. The words shouldn't have hurt as much as they did. But they did. Nina stood up. Harper, why don't you show him what you wrote about me? Harper brightened. Okay. So I wrote, my mama is the strongest person I know. She works hard and takes care of us even when she's tired. She makes the best pancakes and gives the best hugs. That's beautiful, Garrett said, his voice thick. What should I write about you? Harper asked. Garrett didn't know how to answer that. Nina stepped in. Why don't you write what you know so far? You can always add more later. Harper thought about it. Then she picked up her marker and wrote slowly, her tongue sticking out in concentration. When she finished, she held it up. This is my dad. I just met him. He's learning how to be a father. Mama says that's okay because everyone starts somewhere. Garrett had to look away. His eyes were burning. That's perfect, he managed to say. Piper stirred in his lap. Are you crying again? Just a little. Big feelings. Very big feelings. She patted his arm. It's okay. We cry sometimes too. The visits continued. Week after week. Month after month. Harper started calling him Dad without hesitation. She'd run to the door when he arrived and throw her arms around him. Piper was slower, more cautious, but she warmed up gradually. She started saving drawings to show him, started asking him to read her bedtime stories during his visits. One Saturday, Nina surprised him. You don't have to leave anymore. Garrett looked up from the book he was reading to Piper. What? The 1 hour limit. It's gone. You can stay for dinner. Really, don't make me regret it. That night, Garrett sat at Nina's small table and ate spaghetti with his daughters. Harper talked nonstop about her week. Piper stole his garlic bread when she thought he wasn't looking. It felt like a family. But it wasn't. Not really. Because Nina still kept her distance. She was civil, polite. But there was a wall between them that hadn't come down. And Garrett understood why. He had destroyed her trust. And trust, once shattered, didn't just rebuild itself because he showed up on time. 3 months into the visits, Nina pulled him aside after the girls went to bed. We need to talk. Garrett's heart sank. Okay. They sat on opposite ends of the couch. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. You've been consistent, Nina said. I'll give you that. You haven't missed a single visit. The girls are getting attached. That's a good thing, right? It is. But it's also terrifying. Why? Nina's voice dropped. Because what happens if you leave again? What happens if you get bored or life gets hard or you decide this isn't what you want anymore? I won't. You don't know that. Nobody knows that. And if you break their hearts, Garrett, I will never forgive you. Do you understand? Never. Garrett leaned forward. I'm not leaving. I know I don't have a perfect track record. I know I've made horrible choices. But those girls are the best thing that ever happened to me. And I would rather die than hurt them again. Nina searched his face, looking for lies. For cracks. She didn't find any. They want to know why we're not together. she said quietly. What did you tell them? The truth. That sometimes adults make mistakes and can't be together even if they have kids. What do you want me to tell them? Nina stood up and walked to the window. I want you to tell them that you're working on being better. That people can change, but it takes time. And that just because their parents aren't together doesn't mean they're not loved. Okay. And Garrett? Yeah. You need to stop punishing yourself. He blinked. What? Nina turned around. The tiny apartment. The brutal job. The constant exhaustion. I told you to lose everything so you'd understand what I went through. And you did. But you don't have to keep torturing yourself. I'm not. Yes, you are. The girls don't need you to be a martyr. They need you to be stable, present, healthy. Find a better job. Move to a decent place. Stop acting like suffering proves something. Garrett was quiet. This isn't about earning your way back through pain, Nina continued. It's about showing them that growth is possible, that you can build something good from the wreckage. Do you understand? Yes. Good. Because if you collapse from exhaustion, you're no good to anyone. The next week, Garrett applied for a project manager position at a smaller firm. They knew his history, hired him anyway because his experience was solid. He moved into a better apartment. 2 bedrooms. Clean. Safe. He started therapy. Once a week. Dealing with the guilt, the shame, the fear of failing again. And slowly, carefully, he built a life that wasn't about punishment. It was about purpose. For months into the visits, something shifted. Harper's school was having a father-daughter dance. She brought the flyer home and showed it to Nina nervously. Can I go? She asked. Nina looked at the flyer, then at Harper. Do you want to go? Yeah. Emma's going with her dad. And so is Lily. I want to go too. Who do you want to take you? Harper's voice got smaller. Dad. Nina glanced at Garrett, who was frozen on the couch. You'll have to ask him, Nina said gently. Harper turned to Garrett, suddenly shy. Will you take me? Garrett felt his throat close up. You want me to? Yeah. If you're not busy. Harper, I would be honored. Her face lit up. Really? Really? Piper tugged on Nina's sleeve. Do I get to go? It's just for the older kids this time, baby. But we'll do something special together that night. Just you and me. Piper considered this, then nodded. Okay, but Dad has to dance with Harper a lot. I will, Garrett promised. The night of the dance, Garrett picked Harper up wearing the nicest clothes he owned. A button-down shirt, clean pants, shoes he'd polished. Harper wore a dress Nina had sewn herself. Light blue with little flowers. You look beautiful, Garrett said. Harper beamed. Mama made it. At the school gym, Harper introduced him to her friends. This is my dad. No hesitation. No shame. Just pride. They danced to silly songs. Ate cookies. Took pictures in front of a cardboard backdrop. And when a slow song came on, Harper grabbed his hands and stood on his feet while he swayed back and forth. Dad, she said quietly. Yeah. I'm glad you came back. Garrett's voice cracked. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. When he dropped her off that night, Nina opened the door and saw Harper chattering excitedly about the dance. We danced to 5 songs. And I had 3 cookies. And Dad let me stand on his feet for the slow dance. Nina smiled. A real smile. The first one Garrett had seen directed at him in 6 years. Sounds like you had fun. The best fun. After Harper ran inside to tell Piper everything, Nina lingered at the door. Thank you, she said. For what? For showing up. For trying. For proving me wrong about you. I'm not sure I've proven anything yet. You have. More than you think. And for the first time since the gala, Nina's walls cracked just a little. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was close. 6 months after that first visit, everything changed. Harper came home from school crying. Nina found her in the bathroom, sitting on the floor with her knees pulled to her chest. Baby, what happened? Harper's voice was muffled. Emma said her mom told her that our dad is a bad person. She said he hurt you. She said I shouldn't be proud of him. Nina's blood ran cold. Harper, look at me. Harper lifted her tear-stained face. What your dad did was wrong. Very wrong. But he's working hard to be better. And that's what matters now. But Emma said. I don't care what Emma said. Or what her mother said. This is our family. And we get to decide how we handle it. Harper wiped her nose. Can we tell Dad? Do you want to tell him? Harper nodded. That Saturday, when Garrett arrived, Harper was quieter than usual. She didn't run to the door. She just sat on a couch, picking at her fingernails. What's wrong? Garrett asked immediately. Harper looked at her mother. Nina nodded encouragingly. Kids at school are saying mean things about you, Harper said quietly. Garrett's chest tightened. What kind of things? That you're a bad person. That you hurt Mama. Garrett sat down beside her. They're not completely wrong. Harper's head snapped up. What? I did hurt your mother. 6 years ago, I made choices that caused her a lot of pain. And people remember that. But you're different now, right? I'm trying to be. Every single day. But some people won't forget what I did. And that's okay. They don't have to. But it's not fair. Garrett smiled sadly. No, it's not. But life isn't always fair, Harper. Sometimes we have to live with the consequences of our mistakes for a long time. Maybe forever. Do you regret it? What you did? Every single day. Harper was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question Garrett had been dreading. What exactly did you do? Garrett looked at Nina. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. She gave him a small nod. Tell them the truth. Garrett took a deep breath. When your mother told me she was pregnant, I wasn't ready to be a father. I was scared and selfish. And I asked her to do something that would make the pregnancy go away. You mean an abortion? Harper asked. Garrett blinked. You know what that is? We learned about it in health class. It's when someone chooses not to have a baby. Yes, that's what I asked your mother to do. But it was wrong because I didn't give her a real choice. I threatened her. I told her if she didn't do what I wanted, she would lose her job and her apartment. I used my power over her to force her hand. Piper, who had been coloring quietly in the corner, looked up. That's mean. It was very mean. Did Mama do it? Harper asked. She tried. Because I made her feel like she had no other option. But it didn't work. Her body rejected the procedure. And 2 weeks later, she found out she was still pregnant. Not just with one baby. With 2. Harper's eyes widened. With us. With you. What did Mama do then? Nina stepped forward. I left. I disappeared because I knew if I told your father, he might try again. And I couldn't risk losing you. Piper stood up and walked over to Nina, hugging her leg. You saved us. Nina's voice cracked. Yes, baby. I did. Harper looked at Garrett. Why didn't you look for her? I did. For about 2 weeks. Then I gave up. I told myself it wasn't worth the effort. That I had more important things to focus on. Like what? My company. Money. Things that didn't actually matter. Harper was quiet. Processing. Then she asked the hardest question. Did you love Mama back then? Garrett's voice broke. I thought I did. But I didn't know what love was. I loved myself more than anyone else. And that was the worst mistake of my life. Tears rolled down Harper's cheeks. Do you love us now? More than anything in this world. How do we know you won't leave again? Because I'm not the same person I was 6 years ago. I've lost everything. I've worked jobs that broke my body. I've lived in places that made me understand what your mother went through. And I've learned that the only things worth keeping are the things you can't buy. Harper climbed into his lap and buried her face in his chest. She cried. Hard. Garrett held her, his own tears falling into her hair. Piper walked over and joined them, wrapping her small arms around both of them. Nina watched from across the room, her hand over her mouth. After a long time, Harper pulled back. Her face was red and blotchy. I'm still mad at you, she said. You should be. But I still love you. Garrett's breath hitched. I love you too. And I want you to stay. I'm not going anywhere. Piper looked up at him. Promise. I promise. Harper wiped her nose. Can we have ice cream now? Nina laughed through her tears. Yes, we can have ice cream. That night, after the girls went to bed, Nina and Garrett sat on the couch in silence. Thank you for telling them the truth, Nina finally said. They deserve to know. They're going to have questions. For years. Maybe forever. I know. And I'll answer them. Every single one. Nina turned to look at him. You've changed, Garrett. I didn't want to admit it. I kept waiting for you to fail. To quit. To prove that this was all an act. But you didn't. You showed up. Over and over. Even when it was hard. Even when I made it harder. You had every right to make it hard. I know. But you didn't run. That's what matters. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Nina said something that changed everything. You can call yourself their father now. Garrett's head turned sharply. What? You've earned it. Not just biologically, but in every way that counts. You can be their dad. Garrett felt his throat close up. You mean that? Yes. Nina, don't make me regret it. He laughed, but it came out as a sob. I won't. Nina stood up. I'm going to bed. Lock the door on your way out. But before she left the room, she paused. Garrett. Yeah. I'm proud of you. For what it's worth. Then she was gone. Garrett sat alone in the quiet apartment, letting the words sink in. I'm proud of you. 3 months later, the girls had gotten comfortable enough to ask Garrett to stay for dinner almost every night. He usually said yes. Nina didn't object. One evening, after dinner, Harper brought up the question that had been hovering in the background for months. Why don't you live here? Garrett glanced at Nina. Because I have my own place. But you're here all the time anyway. That's different. Why? Nina stepped in. Because your father and I aren't together, Harper. We're co-parenting. That means we work together to raise you, but we're not a couple. Why not? Piper asked. Because some things can't be fixed just because you want them to be, Nina said gently. Your father and I have a complicated history. And while we're learning to trust each other again, that doesn't mean everything goes back to how it was. But you like him now, right? Harper pressed. Nina hesitated. I respect him. I'm grateful for the man he's become. But that's not the same as being in a relationship. Harper looked disappointed. So did Piper. Garrett spoke up. What your mother is saying is that I hurt her very badly. And even though I've changed, some scars don't go away. And that's okay. Because the most important thing isn't whether we're together. It's whether you feel loved. And safe. And happy. Do you love Mama? Piper asked innocently. Garrett's eyes met Nina's across the table. Yes, he said honestly. I do. Nina looked away, her expression unreadable. But loving someone doesn't mean they have to love you back, Garrett continued. Your mother has every right to move forward without me. And I'll respect whatever she decides. Harper frowned. This is confusing. I know, sweetheart. Grown-up stuff is complicated. Later that night, after Garrett left and the girls were asleep, Nina stood at her window and watched him walk to his car. She thought about the man he used to be. Cold, calculating, heartless. And she thought about the man he'd become. Patient, present, humble. She didn't know if she could ever fully forgive him. But she knew one thing for certain. He had earned the right to be in their daughters' lives. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. For now. 3 weeks later, on a random Tuesday evening, something small but significant happened. Garrett was helping Harper with her homework, while Piper colored at the table. Nina was cooking dinner, humming softly to herself. And for a moment, it felt like a real family. Harper looked up from her math worksheet. Dad. Yeah. I'm glad you came back. Garrett smiled. Me too, Harper. Me too. Piper added without looking up from her drawing. We love you, Daddy. Garrett's eyes filled with tears for what felt like the millionth time. I love you both more than you'll ever know. Nina turned from the stove and looked at them. At her daughters. At the man who had broken her heart but fought his way back. And she smiled. Not a smile of forgiveness. Not a smile of romance. But a smile of peace. Because sometimes, second chances don't look like fairy tales. Sometimes they look like this. Messy. Imperfect. uncertain, but real. And that was enough. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and your favorite moment in this journey. And subscribe to Mr. William Chronicles so you don't miss stories like this. We tell stories about second chances, accountability, and turning mistakes into meaning, and trust me, there are more coming. See you in the next one.